Welcome to this Zoom call, Google Hangout, whatever we're going to call it here. I appreciate you doing this, man. So just to give some context to who Reed is a phenomenal copywriter. I've seen your portfolio. I've seen the edits you've made on my own copy for Amazon. But would love to get a little bit to know you a little bit more, man. I only know that you're a copywriter at Amazon, but how did you even get your start? Like, did you go to college for this? Were you a writer when you were younger? Could you tell me a little bit about your background and how you kind of got into all this copy
Sure,
stuff?
absolutely. So, fun fact, I was never a writer like anywhere close to elementary school, middle school, high school, anything like that. I initially actually went to school for photography. I went to art school. So, went down to Savannah College of Art and Design, did the photo program for 2 years in there. But one internship that really like changed my perception on photography was I was on a shoot for the Marines, and we were out on Paris Island, and obviously the shoot had been prepared for a very long time. Everything was very fast paced and quick. But I noticed during the shoot that there was very little room for creativity to come through on set. It was very much already decided what was going to be prepared and what was going to be shot. So it was at that moment that I started to realize, like, do I really want to do photography full time if my idea isn't going to be coming through as much? So I transitioned over to the advertising program the following summer. And luckily enough, the chair ended up becoming Luke Sullivan, the creator and writer of Hey Whipple Squeeze This, like phenomenal book when it
Oh,
comes
okay,
to
yeah, yeah.
advertising. So he was my like kind of influence a lot of the time when we were actually in the program. So started writing there because all of the concepts that come from photography, you have to like explain your thought, explain your vision. All that writing was very helpful in terms of transitioning into photography or transitioning into advertising. But the thing that actually really drove me to writing was I was also a collegiate baseball player at the time too. So I was traveling on the road a lot. And back then, I didn't have the money for a MacBook Pro to be on the road and like do design stuff on the road. So instead of photoshopping and design and things like that, I would just focus on the concept, focus on the idea, really get the headline across and really sell that work. And that's kind of just how it all happened.
Okay, wow. So I haven't heard someone reference that title in like I don't know how long. So I'm actually glad to hear that that title was just referenced. But I wanted to ask, so you transitioned from photography to copy. Do you find that you enjoy photography and design and all that stuff the same way you enjoy copy? And I'm asking that because I recently also made a transition from music to copy, and I feel like the
Mhm.
creative muscle is actually the thing I love, and not just
Yep.
copywriting itself. Do you feel like it's the same way for you?
Oh, same thing for me. Like I know a lot of writers that I've met in the field say that they are from English backgrounds. They come from all these different, like, really technical sides of writing, whereas mine, I'm more about the idea and more about the overall concept and having that come through within the writing. So in terms of creative like mindset, still love to shoot photography out on the side. I still love to like go and cook. I love to do creative things, but I love more that the passions that I still have aren't hampered by clients dictating what I can do and can't do.
So how are you approaching Amazon with that same lens? Do you feel like I mean, obviously you still have to like write within guidelines and stuff like that. Do you feel like writing for Amazon at all hinders that creative aspect, or do you think it actually adds to it because there's guidelines you have to like stay within?
That's a good question. I would say that it really depends on the business that you're in within Amazon. There are certain aspects, like previously I worked at LG, which is a tech company, all but focus more on the consumer side, the product side of things, where it's like selling a TV, selling a phone, selling the idea of bettering your desktop with a new monitor or something like that, something that's very aspirational in a lot of aspects. But when it comes to the writing that I'm doing for Amazon right now, it's more about helping people get a job and helping people transform their lives and things like that. It's a very different mindset in terms of how I see the the turnover rate of successful copy. Um, with the TV, it's very easy. You know, you just like get a bigger TV. It's going to make the living experience, the gaming experience, the movie experience a lot better. It's a lot easier. It's a very one-dimensional kind of click and you're done.
Mhm.
Whereas a job is very different. It's, as you know, with hopping jobs, it takes 3-6 months sometimes to find the right job for you. It's going through that process and making that determination to say, okay, I'm going to leave my current job and go to a new one. It's a very life-changing event compared to buying a TV, buying a phone, things like that. So it's a challenging aspect in that sense, but the architecture of it, the skeleton of it remains the same.
You're right. You're right. It's like, I guess, what are your structures for kind of writing copy? Like, are you using templates? Like, are you saying, okay, like, start with a verb here, then like start with active voice? Like, do you have any templates that you're using to kind of get the messaging across?
Not really. I know the general strategy behind it, and I know what to write for the most part. But what I do generally, if I need more inspiration for it or like more ideas for creative thinking, because
Oh, sorry, you cut out.
and,
Can you,
and Reddit and Facebook.
seconds? Can you go back like 10
Yeah.
seconds? Your audio cut out.
Oh, sure. So when it comes to handling that kind of stuff, it's for me going, instead of having a template for like use this active voice, this kind of reminders, if I need create ideas, I'll go to Reddit, I'll go to Facebook and read the comments that Amazon employees are saying and kind of have that inform how I speak, what I should say, that kind of messaging, to really get on their level.
Dude, that's a great strategy. You're basically taking, and I guess this is just like marketing 101, but you're just taking the conversation that's already going on in people's head and just applying it to the written word. So that's like phenomenal. And I actually love that you're using Reddit and social media. Are you using like any AI? Like, are you using ChatGPT? Are you using Grammarly? Are you using like any tools like that at all?
I'll use it to check my work. I know that ChatGPT is probably going to come to play within the next 3 to 5 years, and we'll use it more as a creative starting point. I don't foresee it taking over the advertising area as much as info. It has a great ability of giving you thought starter ideas and giving you thought starter copy, but you still have to be able to take that and enhance it to and write and edit it to the voice that you need to in order to fit the brand. Because if you just say, hey, Chat GPT, I need you to write a spot for Nike, and it comes up with like the driest, barest bones copy, it's not going to fit the brand.
Yeah. No, that's 100% correct. And I use ChatGPT all the time, and I always run into that problem. So I'm always tailoring like what the prompts are and stuff. But I guess more on that subject, like where do you see copywriting? Like, do you see yourself turning into someone who might be like entering prompts in like 5 years for ChatGPT and then just checking those, or like how do you see copy evolving in the next 5 years?
I think that's where the juniors will go. And mid-level writers will go, the ones that need to handle all the busy work that are like all the display ads, all the banners could even be thrown in there. But from a creative tone and voice copy lead kind of perspective, I don't see that happening as much. Sure, there's going to be the ideas of, hey, I need some night shift campaign headline ideas or something like that,
Yeah.
and I can use those as thought starters, but I'm still going to take what is given to me from ChatGPT and run it through the tone and voice of Amazon and tailor it to fit the brand.
100%, 100%. And kind of going on that, have you ever written any really long form direct response, like small business, like all advertising type of copy, or has it mostly been like this really big brand stuff? Like you're working with well, I know you're working with the Marines, that was like photography and stuff, but like Amazon and stuff like this. What has been your prior experience before Amazon, going back a little bit more?
Most of it is consumer side of things. There have been instances where I've done long form web page copy. I've done white papers for LG in the past. But for the most part, it's dealing with the consumer in short form.
Okay.
So So TV, radio, social, those are the big three that I've done. And then there's also like YouTube video and things like that, more socialized content that it really took up the better half of the beginning of my career.
For sure, for sure. And as far as all the brands you've worked with, like who would you say is probably the easiest to work with, and who has been like your favorite so far?
Ooh, that's a good question. In terms of perks, honestly, working with Nabisco was the best because every time we had to go and do a shoot for social, we always got product on set, and it
Oh,
was always expendable from the client, so we could always taste the new cookies that are coming out 3-4 months in advance, things
no,
like that. That was a really good perk. But in terms of writing, LG was my bread and butter. It was the easiest brand I've ever written for. Under Armour was another one that I felt like was very easy.
nice.
Um, in terms of difficult, honestly, Sprint. Sprint was one of my tougher ones. And I think it had more to do with the structure of the team than the actual copy itself, but that's another conversation.
For sure, for sure. So are you, when you're going to these brands, are you pitching yourself as like a freelancer? Like with Amazon, do you consider yourself to be a freelancer, or do you consider yourself to be like a full-time employee? Like how are you approaching these brands? Are you saying like, hey, I'm pitching you? Or is it more like they're coming to you and you're interviewing? Like what's the style there? And on top of that, another question is like, what's your acquisition channels? Like, are you going through LinkedIn? Or do you have headhunters that are searching for these positions for you? Like, what does that look
Mhm.
like as well?
So going first off, all the headhunters. I've used LinkedIn in the past to get jobs. I've used headhunters in the past to get jobs. I've applied directly to the companies that gotten jobs. So it's just a matter of getting at the right place at the right time. Honestly, it's all luck and it's all who you know. And in terms of um, how I go about the um, wait, no, hold on. What was the first question that?
So the two questions were like, how are you positioning yourself? Like when you're going
That's
on
right.
interviews, are you positioning yourself as like a contractor or just like a full-time employee?
So a lot of the time it's working with that's I've been in an agency and they've been contracted to do the work there. The then client will come to us and say, hey, we need to do a campaign for this new product, this new um, gadget, and they'll come to us with a strategy and then I'll output that. I never think of myself really as a freelancer or part of the team. It's that's my client. That's what I need to do. I never think of myself as like, say, someone that works at RGA and I'm RGA first. And um, I'm always thinking like, okay, if I'm a person that's gonna buy a TV, I'm just gonna keep using that lingo.
Okay.
If I'm someone that's gonna buy that TV, what's gonna entice me the most? That's kind of the way I approach it when I am talking to clients and things like that. Is instead of dealing with the client and what they're looking for, it's about getting the end result in the quickest and fastest way possible. So it's tailoring the experience so that the client's happy with it, but it's still going back to the consumer first.
Oh, 100%, man. I think you hit on something really big there, which is why I want to ask this next question. Like, what do you think is the biggest mistake a lot of maybe newer copywriters are making? Maybe some things that you've done in the past, like where you weren't tailoring that messaging to the consumer, but also making the client happy. Like, what are some of the things that you might have like missed the nail on, or from your own experience, or that you've seen other people do?
Two things: appeasing the client to a fault is one of the biggest things I've seen. Not being able to challenge them because they're coming to you as someone who's considered an expert in their field, right? You're even if you're a junior level person, you're still more of an expert than the marketer that's at the in-house firm. So having the backbone to push back and say, "Hey, this is the way to go. This is the right way to do it. This is there's got to be you got to be able to back it up at least with like either data points or anecdotes and sell it to them, but not having that backbone to push back, and then separately not understand, and it kind of goes hand in hand with it, is knowing when to speak up.
Mm,
That's the big thing because a lot of the time it's new, it's hard. You want to help out as much as possible, but you also don't know the rules necessarily. Fuck all the rules, break them all. Um, that process and learn where, always ask for forgiveness, never ask to do something.
Dude, I love that mentality. Do you see, I mean, this is more of a broad question. Do you apply that to like literally every area of your life? Like, are you like, fuck the, ask for
No,
forgiveness and permission?
yeah, no, I absolutely ask for forgiveness and never for permission. That's something I'll say forever. But I always, in the real world, I'll take that a little bit down. I'll know when to stop,
Sure,
but
sure.
there is that fine line of knowing when to push and when to pull back.
For sure, for sure. Have you ever gone down the route of like, I don't know if you're familiar with like this side of copywriters who are like on Upwork or like who just do like the Instagram pitching. Have you ever done
Mhm.
anything like that, or have you ever considered doing anything like that?
I've worked with a few social media agencies that are like influencer agencies, so they're pitching stuff to potential influencers that are under their wing and kind of getting their feedback on would they work with this brand or this brand to do X stunt. Um, so in that sense, yes, but in terms of pitching ideas, like it's all the same from either from a clientele perspective or working with a brand in particular and getting them to sign off on an idea. It's all about the idea at the end of the day, right? So it's getting to a point where you can sell the idea to anyone who will take it.
So can you kind of like go deeper into that? Because for some copywriters, especially when they're first starting out, it's kind of hard to get metrics around like what your copy is actually doing. At least that's in my experience. Like if you're an email marketer and you're increasing open rates, by moving like for example your emails out of the promotions tab and into the inbox, right? That's like one way you can increase open rates. Like that's very easy to show like, hey, I can do this for you. But for a copywriter who's just getting started, it might be like
Mm.
a little harder to show those numbers. Do you have any like suggestions or ideas for someone who is like trying to really sell themselves as a copywriter in that way, pitching an idea like that?
So in terms of, I need to see a good idea. I need to see an idea that makes me say, wow. I need to see an idea that really makes me stand on my toes and be like, why didn't I think of that earlier? Why didn't I do that 10 years down the ago? I was working on the same brand, same genre of client. I want that kind of thinking more than numbers. If you're selling me on hiring a copywriter, I want to be able to say, hey, I know this guy comes up with good ideas. I know that the brand is going to be in good hands for the future if we get them.
Can you kind of like, okay, so like that's actually a really unique like perspective because when people come to me, I always tell them like put numbers on their resume because that's how I understood like how to apply to jobs. So can you kind
Yep.
of go into like what a good idea is to you and like really specify hammer home like for myself and whoever might be watching this in the future?
Sure. So in terms of a good idea, I feel like clever is the catch-all phrase for this is I need to be it needs to be thought-provoking to me in order to say, hey, that's going to catch someone's eye in the actual field. Because if you're getting advertisers to like the idea, a lot of the time that's going to get caught in the real world too. There are certain instances where um, it's like award bait, clickbait kind of things. Like I can talk to you about the I believe it was the Burger King burger that showed how fresh the ingredients were, and they let it and took photos of that, and then showcased that it's all fresh ingredients. That idea was really great. It was thought provoking. It was really eye catching. But in terms of actually selling the product, it's not going to do much because everyone's going to be turned off by the fact that it's a moldy burger, right? So I'll come back to an idea that I had previously that I still really love. Is we were told by LG that they were coming out with a new monitor. It was a really it was a 34-inch wide, ultra wide monitor meant for designers, photographers, videographers. So they came to us, we have this, we think it would be really good for this demographic. What do y'all think? And then we came up with this idea of actually to share their stories of how they're using the monitor specifically. So we went and shot video. We had them do social media posts on their accounts and things like that. But it was all about this idea of being seriously professional, taking the well-known people in design world and videographer world in photographer editor world and highlighting their stories to let them do the selling for LG, because
Mm.
we just provide the monitor, but the story is from the creative people that actually make the stuff.
I actually think that's a huge gem that you just dropped. Like, I think if you're like, I think referrals from other people sell way more than if like like selling it yourself. So I think that's basically what the brand did at that time. Would you say that, or I guess like, what would you say is like your most proud moment as a copywriter? Would you say like it
Mm.
had something to do with that project, or would you say it's something completely different, or what?
Something completely different, but still on the same brand. I got to work on a Super Bowl spot for LG
Oh,
back
no
in
way.
2015, I believe is what it was.
No way,
The
man.
Super Bowl, it was the Denver Broncos and Panthers Super Bowl. 2015 or 2016, I forget which year it is. Either way, made a Super Bowl spot for them, did an entire social media campaign for it, did some live tweeting during the Super Bowl itself. So we had a war room at our media agency and set that whole thing up. And just that whole experience was so much fun. And the first like true project that I truly got to own.
Dude, that's freaking awesome, man. Are you currently, sorry, I wanted to ask this before I forget. Are you currently in office at Amazon, or where are you at right
I am. I'm in the office at Amazon right now, or one of the many offices, but yes, at an office in Amazon.
now? Okay, where are you based out of? Are you Seattle?
I'm in Seattle, yeah.
Okay. Do you do other client work, or is it just Amazon right now?
Amazon's too much of a workload for me to do anything else at the moment. I'll do like creative fun work on my own, but never for um, like any client or anything like that. I just need to be able to balance that. But when previous jobs, yeah, absolutely was doing side work when I could, doing extra work when I could.
Okay, got you. So how long have you been at Amazon, and like do you feel like you're gonna stay there for the next foreseeable future, or like
Yeah.
why are you at Amazon to begin with? Like, do you just love the work that you're doing there? And yeah, just how long have you been there? Stuff like that.
So I've been at Amazon for a little over a year and a half now.
Okay.
Started working here initially because my now wife and I, when we were in Atlanta, we both had no family in the area. So we were thinking, okay, why are we in Atlanta? We both hate the hot. We both hate the humidity.
Yep.
Um, let's either move to Denver or Seattle. So over the next like 6 months, we need to ask each other for approval to apply, go and apply, see where it takes us, which will force us to go to that city. So my wife actually got a job in Seattle first at her dream company. And I basically was given a term of 4 months to find a job in the Seattle area. So I started applying everywhere with the like doe-eyed kind of to Amazon, Microsoft, Google, etc. Because Seattle is a tech city. So getting into tech was something I really tried to do, and ultimately got to work at it, got the job at Amazon, and I've been working there ever since. I do love the work that we're doing. It's a lot of fun. I think it's very interesting to be able to dive into the personas and the people and all of the customers we focus on. So it's always entertaining in that aspect.
For sure. Do you see yourself like maybe after Amazon going back to something that's a little smaller scale, or do you see yourself staying as like a copywriter, or would you rather be in more of like an executive position? Like, where do you see your career going from here after you transition out of this role?
I've always thought that I would go into the executive route more and more, go for the creative director roles. In terms of ever leaving Amazon, I don't know, maybe, possibly. I'm not going to say no,
Mhm.
but right now, extremely happy with what's going on, work wise, life wise, things like that. So there, but um, I don't ever foresee the agency world. I do love the fact, and I've had this experience now 4 separate times in house, where you experience a better pace of life when it comes to the creative process. There's never a rush job that is like so absurd that you're gonna have to work 26 straight hours in order to get it out. if you're briefed on Thursday and told it's due by end of day Friday, it's like, to do anything. That's the ad world to me. That's what I grew up in. So getting into Amazon, getting into the tech space, getting into in-house, they actually value time, the time it takes to create something, to think something through. So I mean, I'm staying in-house no matter what from here on out.
Dude, that's a massive gem. Because I'm actually kind of going through that right now. Like I, aside from Amazon, I also work at an agency, and it's always like very fast turnaround. So, and I used to work at startups, so like I completely
Yeah.
feel you on that. And I think also to add to that, like not only does Amazon, I feel like value, or just big companies, they value the creative process a little bit more, but they also just, I think, value just the employees kind of work-life balance a little bit more. They're very lenient
Mm.
off days and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like that's also a really huge thing at Amazon, and I'm sure you probably agree with
Yeah.
that. Um,
That's just a culture, because like, yeah, the issue with advertising agencies in general is that you can lose that brand at any moment. Like you can
yes,
always go under
yes,
review. So it's always the fight to always stay on top of it and always be ahead of the game when it comes to that. Whereas being in-house, it allows you to have a little bit more of a work-life balance, think things through a little bit more rather than just going back to back to back.
dude, 100%, 100%. And that's actually another thing that you just pointed out is like there could always be that contract that ends, man. Like it can literally just be
Mm,
like this, like, and I always have that in the back of my the back of my mind with the agency I'm working with. So that definitely adds to the stress. And speaking, I guess, of just like working at different places, how often do you update your resume, or do you only update it when you're like applying for jobs? Like, what do you think of that?
I didn't say update it once a year, unless I'm actively looking, in which case I'm pushing it. But I generally try and set January up so that I'm updating my resume, my website with all the stuff that I did the previous year.
Okay, and then for your website, what are you using to build that? Did you have someone else do that, or did you build that yourself?
I built it myself, but I mean, build is a very word. It's Squarespace,
Okay,
so it's just figuring out the template that I wanted to have, and then on that page and making it happen. But Squarespace, Wix, all that stuff, it's super easy to understand, super easy to build in. So all good there.
dude, drop your affiliate link, bro. No, I'm just kidding. But, actually, that would probably be a good time. Like, if you want to just drop your website name, is it just readwarner.com?
It can be, but the one that actually came up first was writeandread.com,
That's right.
but
That's right.
read being my name instead of actually reading a book. So yeah, writing as in writing a letter, and read.com or readwarner.com. Either one works. Either one goes to it.
Nice, nice. Okay, so I'll definitely wherever this gets uploaded, I'm not too sure, but I'll definitely make sure to drop a link to that. Do you do any networking with other copywriters on social media? Like, are you following people on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn to kind of get more ideas? Like, do you source any like new jobs from social media that way, or just any networking like that?
So network, I mean, like I've been in the business for about, what is it, 2023. So I've been in the business technically for 12 years now.
Okay,
So I've developed a good enough network to where I can reach out to anyone if need be, but I'll still follow people. There are linked influencers that are still pushing their stuff on LinkedIn and social media in general. So I'll reach out to them if they have anything in particular that I'm interested in. But for the
okay,
most part, it's just keeping up with that kind of stuff like on Ad Age and making sure I'm not out of the loop on things.
for sure. And so I guess on that same token, would you ever consider opening up like your own copywriting agency? And I have no idea what that would even look like for
Mm.
you, but is that something you'd ever consider? Maybe outsourcing copywriters on Upwork, or outsourcing like junior copywriters to handle your tickets, anything like that? Have you considered?
No, I haven't considered outsourcing copy from this job in particular yet. I haven't felt the need to because they've actually given me the resources to build and develop a team that can handle the workload that we're given.
For sure.
Um, in the future, I'm not going to rule it out, but I would much rather have someone that I can help influence and teach the brand so that they can do it themselves rather than having to edit. So that's the goal there. In terms of opening up a shop, I used to really want to do that. Like when I was in school, I was grinding to be able to get to that creative director, global creative director position, and start my own firm and things like that. But I like the comfort and stability of a normal job.
You,
I'm
bro.
I'm not one I'm not one to go for the 80-hour work weeks anymore. So I tend to say no, but I do still have an agency name in mind for if that ever happens.
Okay, could you share it, or is that confidential? And no
I
pressure.
don't want it to be I don't want it to be stolen, so I'm not going to suggest.
All good, all good, all good. So, so you're at Amazon. What are you like working on right now? I mean, I kind of have a vague idea of like what you're doing, but if you could just tell the audience, like, what are you specifically working on right now? Obviously, don't give out any information that you can't, but what are you working on right now? And then, like, what are some things that you're working on, hopefully in the future, that you think Amazon could really benefit from that they're not doing right now in specifics to copy? So first,
Mhm.
what are you working on right now? And then where do you think you could improve some of the copy in Amazon later down the road?
Sure. So working right now, I can say that it's more strategic focus than actual copy focus at the moment. Dealing with some of the benefits that Amazon provides and coming up with a easier way to digest it all rather than just having the like chart and list of all the benefits that you get depending on the amount of hours that you work.
Yep.
That's the big thing on top of standardizing the tone and voice across all of Amazon. Um, on top of that, there's nothing really I can say too much at the moment because a lot of it is more strategic focus and more top line rather than just creating copy for copy's sake. But yeah, building out all that is taking up the majority of my time.
For sure. So then as far as strategy goes, like how are you pulling together? Because I know you have a lot to do with like brand voice overall. Like and not even just for Amazon, but for all the brands you work with, like let's say LG or even like even anything you've done even before LG, like how are you pulling ideas for the brand voice? Like how are you what influences are you taking? Like are you
Mhm.
looking at other brands that are competition and pulling from their copy? Are you looking at what previous copywriters are doing and adding on to that? Like what does that process look like for you as far as literally developing the voice of like who this brand is?
So in terms of being able to take it all in, I want to be a sponge as much as possible when I'm out in the real world because I can go into a Subway, I can go into um, a grocery store and see that they're hiring and read that language and try to see like how is this different than what we're doing at Amazon? Am I more attracted to this language than what we're currently doing? And should I be implementing this style of saying things in future projects? So always keeping that in mind, always like taking photos of specific hiring signs that come up. But in terms of taking it all in, like I want to make sure that the idea always comes through first. That's what I'm going to stick with, and that's what I know. Having that good idea can help stem across all executions. It helps with any voice that you want to apply to it. So like if there's a good idea that can be for let's say LG, let's say for Chips Ahoy back in the day,
Nice.
um, there are certain ideas that obviously are only filtered to one side or the other. Um, but on like always keeping in my mind, like I have a bank of Word docs, have all these ideas that I haven't gotten to use or like want to repurpose that didn't get sold to clients in the past that I think can still be good. So working through that, that's the process for me. It's always thinking of the idea first, and then everything from that idea can trickle down.
Dude, Reed, you're dropping gems right now. And also you answered a question. You answered a follow-up question, which was I was gonna ask you if you have like a copy swipe file or any like marketing swipe file, but you just said like
Yep.
you do. But bro, like one thing that you just said, which I always like, I'm kind of showing my brother how to be a copywriter right now, and I keep telling him this is like use your environment like to kind of pull ideas from. Like, bro, one day I was in the gym and I just saw like an ESPN ad and I just used copy that, or like I took copy that I really liked from that ESPN ad. It's like, dude, there's so much in the world right now that you can just pull ideas
Mhm.
from. And that's just huge. So I think the fact that you just said that is just like it just made my day because I do that all the time. Just hearing that like someone else does that is just awesome.
Yeah.
But I guess to like kind of go outside of copywriting a little bit, like what creative projects are you working on right now? Like I know Amazon's obviously like a massive like time commitment, but are you doing any like major photography projects right now? Are you doing anything in design? Like what does that look like as far as like outside copywriting? And not only that, like what other hobbies are you into? Like I know you said you play baseball. Do you still play baseball? Do you do any other sports? Like what does that look like for you?
Sure. So, biggest time commitment outside of work right now is actually preparing a wedding and all the design and all the project management that comes with that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's the big thing at the moment, and that's going to go on for another 6 or 7 months. On top of like planning for the honeymoon and things like that. So, in creative terms, it's not like I'm having a true output a lot of the time. It's making the decisions and planning things out more than actually like having that creative mindset and having that deliverable come through. But there's still that creative process of choosing the right vendors and going through all the design ideas that you have for all the invitations and things like that. All of the different ideas you could have for traveling, for example, like what restaurants you need to hit. You got to plan out that day, right? So that's taking up a majority of my time. Aside from that, if I ever have a chance to do creative work, it's taking photos out on a hike. It's going into the wilderness out in Seattle because Seattle's great when it comes to that kind of mood and tone. So taking photos. I have a dog that takes up a lot of my time too. So
Oh yeah.
shout out to Winnie,
Oh yeah.
golden
That's so
retriever, 4 years old.
nice.
Still very, but starting to finally calm down. Yeah, it's all the it's really it's the creativity of planning trips right now. That's my main outside of Amazon creativity.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. How many hours? Because I've been like, this is so unrelated, but I've been thinking about getting a dog for like I don't know how long, like 5, 6 years. How many hours a week would you say like you dedicate to like taking care of the dog?
Um, let's say probably 20 to 30 realistically. Like
It's like a full
it's
time
making
job.
sure that especially if you get a like once they get to the age mine's at, it's very easy. But in the beginning, this was pre-COVID. I was going leaving my dog at home, but coming back at lunch every day, like driving home and driving back to work within that hour
Okay.
to be able to take her out, take her to feed her and things like that, make sure she's getting the right stimulation that she needs. If she couldn't go to daycare or I couldn't afford it at the time.
Mm,
So that's the big thing. But now it's probably like 10 hours like truly dedicated. My dog is very lazy and will play for like 20 minutes and be like, okay, it's nap time, it's time to go to bed, things like that. So it's a lot easier now.
for sure. Okay, that's good to know. Definitely keeping that in the back of my mind. Want to go back to like you mentioned like you really enjoy having like the kind of freedom to do it, like freedom to work at Amazon and kind of have that cushy job kind of thing, which I completely relate to. How do you or I guess I don't know if this is a loaded question, but like how do you make sure that um you're kind of meeting all the expectations from like your higher ups without taking too much time to kind of develop an idea? And like how do you just not get too comfortable? Because it's so easy to get so comfortable at like I'm sure you're making decent money or whatever. This is like a great opportunity. It looks great on the resume. How do you not get too comfortable where it's like you're kind of like screwing up and like I know I'm not saying you are, I'm saying like for anyone who is watching this obviously, like how do you make sure you don't get into that position where you're just like shit, like you're almost becoming like really lazy with it, you know what I mean? Like how do you maintain
Right.
that drive?
That's a good question, and I've run into that times in my career actually. The big thing for me is noticing when I start to phone things in, or if you start to phone things in, um,
You said
taking
phone things in?
immediately, like not phoning things in, but like, well, yeah, phoning things in. It's taking the easy route, knowing what's going to be approved, and not thinking further. When I start to realize that I'm doing that, it's an immediate like red flag for me to take 2 weeks off, just to take
Okay.
a quick immediate breather away from work to get that refresh and that creative spark that's needed to go back to work, right? So there's that 2 week break. I always have PTO ready to go for just that in case, especially within a post 3 year work time frame. Like if I've been in an agency for 3 years, I know that that's kind of the drop off the cliff for me of where I start to be like, oh, I'm really comfortable. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of being able to pick it back up, getting that new spark and taking that time off, time away to be able to say, hey, is this something that I should continue doing, staying at this job and push more, or do I need a new environment and
Mm.
new ideas to push me? So it's recognizing when that happens, and then either going either route, whether it's staying or looking for a new job and looking for that new fire, right? So that's the big gist of it. But at the same time, being able to keep that fire going, I don't like mediocrity in terms of producing things. I want to be proud of what I'm doing. I want to be able to say like, hey, I'm doing these really cool things. 'Cause I work in advertising. That's supposed to be a really fun industry, right? You want to be able to say like, oh, I did this really cool thing to my friends. Um, if I'm not producing something that I'm not proud of, it's something that I'm like either going to look for in terms of pushing the creativity or pushing for a new job. That's it.
Bro, that's major key right there. Like, how about on the other side of things, like, and I guess more so for people who are just starting out, like not comfortable at all, but really just trying to get their foot in the door. What would you suggest for those people who, because I have people coming to me all the time, like who are maybe just getting out of college or just people I just know that actually just want to get into copywriting. What would you suggest like those people do, especially even if they don't have a college degree or if they don't really have a writing background, but they really enjoy like what copywriting is? Like, do you have any suggestions as far as like getting your foot in the door? Do they have to start at like a very junior position? Do they have to start as a copywriter? Should they start in other areas of marketing? Like, what's your take on that, man?
So, in my point of view, I think anyone can come up with it. It takes a lot to refine an idea today to be good. So there's a lot of background in my career where strategists would throw out ideas and like that's a really cool idea, but what if we did something to take it to 110% of what you think? Like it's being able to see the idea and think that it's good, and then be able to improve upon it. So that's one thing that I would really say is never stop pitching ideas. That's like I never get tired of hearing someone say something like, "What if we did this?" Like I get to start thinking like that too, and get that creative thought process going, and like start to think of, "Oh, that is really cool. What if we did do that for this event or this like process or whatever we are working on at the moment?" So never stop pitching ideas. But in terms of background and what you don't need a degree from any 4 year, 2 year school. If you have a portfolio that shows that you know how to write, that you can be clever with it, that you can do long form and short form, you're going to get noticed and you're going to get picked up. It's only a matter of
Thank
time. You
you.
just need to keep pushing. Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for saying that. I've been trying to tell people that you don't need a degree, you just need a freaking great portfolio. So for you, what is that? Is that long form? Because you've done web copy, right? So like, I guess not what's that for you because you've already said like your experience, but like for other people, where can they get this experience? If they're not already in a job. So like, would you suggest they write their own blog or write a Medium article, go on Craigslist and do free work? Like, what does that look like for someone who's just starting out?
I mean, first things first is you take your favorite brand and write for them, create ads for them. Like little print ads. It doesn't need to be a TV spot. It doesn't need to be a media ad or a video or anything like that. Simple 8 word headline, get the idea across, describe the image, but if you can, go on Fiverr, find a designer to either design it, get a photo, something like that. But comp it up, and if it's a good idea, it's a good idea and it'll get noticed.
Dude,
But having that short form like headline, subhead, CTA, that's all you need. And create like 3 of them for a triplet, and make sure that they all have that consistent language, but have them be subtly different so that they're clearly part of a campaign, but still bringing a different message, bringing a different mentality selling something different, but still saying it the same way. Like that's what you want.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. Thank you for saying all of this, man. Like this is exactly why I wanted to have this conversation. So like for yourself, what would you say is I mean you have a massive experience already. So how would you describe yourself as a brand per se? Like if you were to give me like 5 words or you can say as many words as you want, but like how would you describe yourself as a copywriter and or just as a brand in general?
Art director, thinker, copy editor. Like
Mm,
I think visually first and foremost. Like
okay.
I'll think of that. That's always. I mean, that comes with the photography background, I think. But what's funny is I've always worked with art directors that think words first better than I have with art directors that think visually first.
Mm,
There's that really nice combination of me thinking visually and them thinking by in terms of writing that makes the ideas just pop that much more.
okay. So that's actually very interesting. So, have you, I guess, what are some of the brands that you've worked with where you have seen that, like that art director that thinks visually first versus the words first? Where have you seen that work really well?
Most recently, I think it was either at Amazon or my
Nice.
work with Capital One in
Oh, nice.
particular. Um, both of those art directors think they both have English backgrounds and ended up going to portfolio school after the fact. So they come from the really studious mindset of English and writing, whereas I come from an art school, so I think visually first more than anything, and we're able to bring our ideas together and just make magic happen.
Dude, I love that. I love that that collaboration and that it's not yin yang, but kind of. Um,
Yeah, no,
uh,
exactly.
but also I wanted to ask like because I know we're kind of running out of time here, but I want to ask this question. It's like you are amazing at giving me feedback as a copywriter. I don't send work to you all the time, but when I do, I get freaking positive feedback or like really constructive feedback all the time. What's your process like when you're reviewing someone else's work? How do you approach telling them like what's good, what's not? Like how do you not hurt their feelings, which you're really good at? You're really good at like giving feedback without like being an asshole.
No, thank you.
How do you
I
how do
appreciate that.
you how do you
Um,
try to keep that mindset going?
when I mean, I've had asshole creative directors in the past that like completely obliterate you if you do something poor. And I've always found that to be a very negative experience.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to, and I think it just comes from personality naturally of like not necessarily wanting to be a people pleaser, but being able to say like, how would I want to be treated? What's wrong? What's right? So it's going back to the Amazon way of thinking, which is thinking about the way the customer thinks and trying to guide them to the right direction rather than telling them what the right word is.
Oh my God, bro, you're speaking my language right now. Are you like a do you like read any psychology books or do you are you into
I
psychology?
did. I did back in college. I haven't recently. Um, but I mean, like, I'll think of it in a psychological way, I guess. And that goes back to thinking and going back to Reddit and going back into Facebook and reading the comments and taking that input and then outputting it into my writing. So it's just a matter of, yeah, thinking psychologically, sure. But I haven't read any books in a long time about that stuff.
I'm asking because you are talking like you are very well versed in it. Like you're always very other person first. Like when you're talking to me, when you're writing, just sounds like you're all about the other person, the candidate, the client, the customer, whatever it is. And that's something that's very prevalent in psychology. It's like always not being a people pleaser, but kind of understanding the communication of the other person. So I just want to give you kudos for that because you're like really good
No,
at it.
thank you.
And the fact that you don't study psychology on a regular basis is just like mind blowing to me. So I just want to say that.
Appreciate it. No, it was an interest of mine, but it was never to the point where I was going to spend $100,000 to go study it.
That's very valid, man. So I know we only have a few minutes left. Is there anything you kind of wanted to touch on at all, or anything you want to say to an audience that's like you wish you knew this when you first got in the game, or you wish you knew this when you were like 18-year-old when you were first getting into college? Anything like that you want to spread some light on?
So I mean, I got really lucky. I am not a nepo baby, but second generation ad man. My dad used to work in the agency world too, and won a ton of awards because of it. But I grew up learning from him and got to see it firsthand. So I feel like I got a good idea of what the agency world was and what advertising was before even thinking about what do I want to do with the rest of my life.
Mm.
So um, the one, if you're ever wanting to work in advertising, there's always someone willing to listen. If you reach out to anyone with the word creative director on LinkedIn, they'll gladly take like 5 minutes to read your portfolio. If you're any good, they'll give you feedback. So it's just a matter of constantly making those connections and understanding that while like someone like me might take like 2 weeks to respond, know that it's going to be coming from a loving place, and know that we always want to continue to bring in the next wave of good advertisers. So it's not just copywriting, it's not just art direction, it's the whole breadth of advertising. Like reach out if you ever have any questions, because we're more than willing to answer.
Dude, that's awesome, man. So to like, first of all, thank you for being so positive and uplifting. Like, I think a lot of people who are just getting started kind of don't know where to go. So this is like very refreshing for anyone who's just getting into the game. So to kind of wrap up, like, what are some closing thoughts? Where can people find you? I know we have writeandread.com. Read is spelled REID. But where else can people find you, and what should people look forward to seeing from you in the next couple weeks?
Same handle across Twitter, across Instagram, TikTok. I'm on, but I don't post there. I just watch everything and take everything in. So follow me there if you're interested. I post photography things every now and again. It's all good. I don't really post writing things anymore unless it's a work related thing, because I like to keep it private myself, and I don't want to actually have myself be my own client, which is a weird thought to have. But in terms of what you'll see me doing next is, yeah, it's getting married and going through that whole process. That's the majority of content for the next year for me.
Dude, congrats on getting married, man. I hope that I know that can be really stressful. I used to be a wedding DJ years ago, so I already know how the wedding process
nice.
is. So dude, I completely understand. So good luck with everything.
Diamo.